Hello, and welcome to another behind the scenes kind of interview with Accidental. I'm here today with the fantastic comedian Alex Kealy, who's kind of joining us live from London. Alex, is that right?
That's right. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks very much for coming in for this very brief chat. We're going to just very kind of touch upon you and your career. Why the heck you're coming to Belfast? What is it that you do? What drives you? And find out more about you and more about your career. So, without further ado, kind of, well, who are you, Alex Kealy?
Alex. I'm a 33-year-old comedian. I do sort of mostly kind of political comedy. I've been sort of doing comedy for about 12 years or 10 years if you don't count the pandemic, depending. And I've taken 5 hours of comedy up to the Edinburgh Fringe, and this is my second national tour. I'm about halfway through it, and Belfast is the next stop. Is the very next stop. That's the next one I'm doing.
So, with 5 hours of kind of comedy at the Fringe, what does that mean to people? Does that mean that you've done five different shows, or you've done five 1 hour shows? You've done kind of 5 hours of different things. What to different people? What does 5 hours of at the Fringe kind of mean?
Great question. I've probably gone in there too hard, and in that. So basically, that means that in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and then 2022, RIP 2020 and 2021, due to aforementioned coronavirus. Each of those years, I took up a new hour of stand-up comedy, and then usually Edinburgh Fringe, you're trying, maybe American stand-ups build these specials, which are like usually sort of disconnected hours of comedy that are like very funny and very punchline heavy usually, but always, that usually takes them 3 or 4 years to write and aren't usually on one topic. Whereas the Edinburgh Fringe, there's this kind of tradition over the last, well, particularly the last 15, 20 years, but going back further of comedians having to write these almost like themed hours of comedy. And so my fourth one was about rationality and about sort of saying, are we rational or are we emotional? And sort of particularly looking at politics and sort of saying, and my argument was that we're really emotional, and any of our rationality, we're just trying to find using our brain to find excuses to think things that our gut already told us to think, basically. And then this year, this tour is about Silicon Valley tech companies, basically.
So that's a trend that started in comedy where it's more like an hour long mini play, almost like a funny one person show. Is it because it's themed? Is it a loose theme that you find it, or is it people making more of an elongated kind of story?
Yeah, I guess different people. I mean, some people really tuck into a theme, and then some people have like a lighter theme that allows them is like a bucket which they can then dip into all different. I think the dream is if you're writing, is to find something which is like it's really about like the bigness and smallness of life or whatever, and then that's like a really a clever little way of being able to kind of hit every topic. I think if I go, it's about Silicon Valley tech companies, it's a little bit more of a straight jacket. So but there's some sub themes about my life and about a breakup I had, and that sort of connects in various ways. And then so I'd say the last couple of shows I've done have been a bit tighter themed and have presented sort of an argument. And then hopefully loads of good jokes in. I love writing jokes. And sometimes in my career I've not wanted to do themed shows or not wanted to do stuff about my emotions or whatever, because I just thought, well, I love writing jokes. I just want to present as many jokes as possible in an hour, and who cares what the structure is? And the answer is reviewers do care what the structure is. And the audience, I think, but I don't think as much as reviewers. Yeah.
Yeah, reviewers are all well. You see so much comedy. You kind of like to be connected to certain things. You like to find your safe zone and be able to kind of dissect something. And I suppose having a structure allows them to actually say something, or
Yeah.
not, depending upon your few of critics. So how, kind of 5 different hours of shows over multiple different years. How hard is that as a comedian starting out? You know, did you go to the Fringe straight away when you first started making comedy? Did you go to different places? Did you work your way there through any kind of incubator schemes, or was it you were driven to go to the Fringe really early on?
Oh wow, well, loads of really good questions there. I mean,
Too many questions probably
no,
in one.
well, I kind of want to hit all of them, so I'm just worried that I'll forget some of them. But you can guide me if I. So is it? Well, I think to take your sort of first one, which is what sort of about what's like doing like 5 hours kind of on the trot. Like, I think the answer is it's really hard. And American comedians, it always blows their mind because they'll even go like, "Oh, all the greats, take 2 or 3 years to write an hour-long show." And what all of you British comedians, hundreds of you, think you can write one every year, and they kind of look at us a bit skeptically for that. I think it's a mixture. It makes you better. It forces you to do something where you're like, oh my god, I've got to write a whole new funny hour, and that's really hard. Like I remember a friend of mine who's a comic. If we're talking about reviewers, who said his favorite review of someone was it was like a 3-star review, and the review tagline was something like, "At the end of the day, it's just another really good hour of stand up." It's like you can't give that 3. Do you know how hard it is to make people laugh for an hour without really a breath? Like that's so hard to do that. And we underplay that, but I do think it makes British comedians, the Edinburgh Fringe as a challenge, I think just makes British comedians write really hard because that you've only got 11 months to write a whole new hour of stuff, and it just forces you to build and build and build stuff, which is really good and healthy in some ways. But also, I think it can lead to burnout. And I think a lot of comedians since the pandemic, I'm trying it for the first time. I've literally gone up in some capacity for basically pretty much gone up for the whole month every year that I could, barring legally prevented to in 2020. Kind of try to go for a month every year since 2012. And I'm taking a year off this year. I had a really fun year last year, and I just think, well, maybe my show was a bit better because I had 2 years to write it rather than 1 year to write it. And I think a lot of comedians now are maybe doing some years where they go up for like a week for a work in progress, and then go up for the full month, maybe the year after or something, and try and do like 2-year cycles rather than 1 year cycles.
Is that really? Are you often taking a show where you haven't taken it somewhere else before, or have you worked it up until the point with Edinburgh? Is kind of Edinburgh the rather than the testing ground, the kind of final place?
Yeah, and I think it was so. I think Edinburgh really used to be like the testing grounds, but then I think that like a lot of stakes started to happen with Edinburgh in the last sort of 15 years, particularly. And obviously, it is a place where you can still really be wild and experiment. And like the amount of art and performance art and every type of performing arts is so on show there. But people also, it's one of the few places where you can get like a lot of reviewers to come and watch you, or all those sorts of people in the industry that might be able to kind of get you a larger audience. So it becomes this thing, this arms race sometimes where everyone feels pressure to come with a kind of complete, fully realized show that's ready to go. Uh, so so usually pretty much every year that I've gone, I will go to 10 or 20 much smaller fringes or festivals or places where you can do work in progress. So and lots of great places, Buxton Fringe is really good for that. That is always in late July. And like the Ludlow Festival and like the Brighton Fringe, although that's a lot of people are taking finished shows there. A lot of these are brilliant festivals in their own right, where people taking, but a lot of comedians particularly are using those to kind of drill their sort of late stage work in progress shows in May, June, and July. And that's the main reason I'm excited to take a year off this year is I love August going up to Edinburgh. But June and July, I have sleepless nights where I worry whether the show is going to be ready in time for August. So I can't wait to just not wake up in a cold sweat at 4 a.m. on like July the 20th and like call my agent being like, do I have to go up in a week to Edinburgh? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first year after university or school where you don't have to do exams at Christmas or holidays.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's that kind of feeling of oh, thank fuck, I don't have to do this again.
yeah.
Um, but so your show that you bring over to Belfast next week, Winner Takes All, is that's the show that you've just done in the Fringe?
Yeah, that's the show I did at the 2022 Fringe. Really enjoyed it. It was my favorite. I think it was my favorite year growing up. I was with Monkey Barrel, who are this great series of venues in Edinburgh, are really well managed. They're kind of comedy clubs all year round, and they're, you know, the people who run it really take a lot of thought and care. And the financial deal is really fair for performers. I guess the thing that we didn't quite touch on when you were talking about Edinburgh, one of the main problems for a whole variety of reasons, is just really expensive to take shows up. And I do think, obviously, there's a lot of quite negative effects on comedy in this country and a lot of other art. But
Yeah. It's because it's
yeah,
not just about the expense of putting on the show; it's everything that surrounds the show because it's such a busy time. Everything from accommodation to the competition for good slots, the competition for good venues. It's just an incredibly difficult entity. I'm assuming.
yeah, yeah. And there are problems for what that does for representation in an industry like this. And it had, it's an industry that is probably overrepresented in every demographic that I'm the demographic in. I'm a sort of like straight white middle class man, who uh, benefit from a bunch of privileges, and all of those dynamics that operate in Edinburgh are not good for improving that representation. So I mean, like, I don't, there was a fund that was set up this year, which I think will be helpful for some people that managed to grant a couple of £1,000 to quite a few performers. But that's, it's not enough. So yeah.
Yeah, it's such a challenging environment every from any kind of direction that you take it. It's one of those interesting things that from theatre, which is it was my background. Edinburgh was always the place that you sort of wanted to go to, but you knew that it was such a difficult place to go, and you had to put so much investment in it that it became almost a place that you avoided because of all the kind of the difficulties that kind of surround it. So I can certainly appreciate even for when you're on your own as an artist, as a comedian, that's doubly challenging in lots of ways because of that you don't have a cast with you, you don't have a support network of a production company. It's you and your script and the room. Um,
Yeah.
kind of what would you tell yourself back before the 5 hours of comedy at the Fringe? What would be the advice would you give to people kind of anticipating or prepping for Edinburgh in 2023, 24?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, for me, there's certain performance and maturity piece of advice that I'd love to have known, or rather, I'd love to have been able to take like 5 years ago. Like, I think I'm a bit more relaxed on stage. I think a big thing with comedy is just being like a confident person that the audience feels they can trust. And I'm someone that, will openly wear certain anxieties on my stage or on my sleeve on stage, or used to. But the problem is that anxiety is a great route. It's the paradox. The audience wants a really like chill person that they smell confidence coming off, but also like a chill person exuding confidence is not a good comedy writer, right? If you like jokes, being hyper anxious and hyper alert to the world around you is exactly what causes observations and insights that are funny. So the audience want a super nervous writer and a very confident performer. And though that person does, that's two different people. They what, so sometimes I don't have sympathy for what the audience wants there. But so I'm trying to have fun on stage is just what, it's what people are there for, and trying to distill complicated ideas in a way that are really like fun and enjoyable on the night. So, but in terms of the logistics, I mean, like for being a sort of touring comedian or trying to do comedy, and I'm sure this applies to Northern Ireland as well. But it's like not good advice for the planet, but being able to drive and having some kind of car is for particularly if you're like a solo performer, is just such a like big deal, and it's just a real night. You know, you don't want. I prefer public transport and I love trains, but you know, if I want to go and gig in Dorset for £140, if I've got a car with good MPG, that's like a financially viable possibility and will make me better at comedy, and I will be able to like earn something from that. If I need to go by train, I either can't go because the trains finish at 8 p.m., or it will cost me so much money that I've just lost money doing work. So that is a really boring point in terms of taking. Yeah, but it's like
Well, it's just it's entirely accurate. I don't think anyone would hold it against you that you need to be able to drive. But can you not take at least 5 or 6 more comedians in your car at the same time who might be
yeah,
gigging in the local area?
oh look, we car share to, and I don't know if I can swear on the stream, but to fuck.
It's a
Uh,
it's a stream. So it's fine.
yeah, okay. The director general of the BBC is not going to come in and be like, "What the?" Well, they wouldn't say "What the fuck."
It, it'd be great if they would. That'd be fantastic if the director general of the BBC came in. But we might have other harsh words for them if they decide to come in.
Fair. But yeah, no, we love to car share. We're a financially savvy group of people, comedians in some ways, and car sharing would be one of those. But I don't feel like in terms of advice for Edinburgh. I mean, there's just so much, but I think, yeah, I mean, trying to find a way to, you know, there are free fringes and free festivals up there which like make some of this easier, and create spaces that you can go up and take a risk, and probably you can get a good amount of money in the bucket afterwards from donations, that actually, if you skimp on a whole bunch of things, you might not make that crazy a loss. So in those early years you're starting, a lot of the big costs, like maybe production or directing or PR or whatever, you don't have to do. So there are ways that maybe your outlay might be rent, ticket up there, maybe in the fringe program, and then like a poster that you pick, a friend with a good camera, poster that you design yourself, a good deal with the printer, you fly yourself, all that sort of stuff. Maybe your costs might be 2,500, and if you get a good ish, if you get an okay room on a free fringe, even if you're new, you might over the month get close to that in the bucket, even if you're like someone starting their first year, maybe. So there are ways you could maybe, you know, where it's not a honking great loss in your first year doing it, but it's hard. But it's what, like, the trade-off is you then get a month in the only place in the world you could perform comedy like 4 times a day, and that's like crazy. That is, there's nowhere else you can really do that, and it's just such a huge learning experience.
Because it's not just about you performing. I'm assuming also, 4 times a day doesn't give you much chance to see other people's work, but there's a huge networking opportunity, I'm sure, with getting to kind of meet other people, getting to kind of chat to them, getting to see their work, be inspired by comedians who are both around longer and you're coming up, because it's such a a cavalcade of people kind of coming together in this one focused place.
Yeah, so exactly. So as well as being on stage a lot, you should be trying to, you know, if you're a comic up there, if you got your hour that you're splitting with someone or your own show, you know, you can probably try and get on stage a couple of other times a day for 10 minutes to like hawk your wares to other audiences. And then, yeah, and then trying to see like a few shows a day. Obviously, you know, that gets expensive. So some of these free festivals help with that a bit. And then trying to maybe find some kind of role with another show. If there's like another show that you can fly for, whatever, you might get passes for like the Pleasance or the Assembly or the Underbelly, and that would allow you to go and see shows that aren't sold out for free if you've got some other role. So that's a kind of slightly sneaky tip. Well, it's not a sneak, you know, if you've got a valid role as a director or a flyer or a producer or whatever on a play or a stand-up show that's in one of these big venues, that can help. You know, you go and experience a lot of that art for free. You know, yeah, in non-sold out shows, and the performance will be grateful. The performance will be grateful. If you're a good other laugher in the room and they've got a reviewer in, you know, I don't mind if someone's not paid in that sort of circumstance.
you have to pay in laughter. You have to
Exactly, exactly.
pay
If you're
in your
going in a
engagement.
lanyard, you better be cackling like a hyena.
So you're coming over next week for a show. Where else are you on tour at the moment? You're obviously doing a gig in the Empire day before us for someone.
Yes, so that'll be a club gig. I imagine I'll be doing 20 or 30 minutes of just more, club observational sort of stand up, and then and then doing this tour show with you on the Wednesday after, and then I've done about half of my tour. So I've done a few dates in London, Brighton, Edinburgh, Oxford, Cambridge, and then I've got Reading and Maidenhead and Bristol um, coming up. I think that's most of them. And yeah, it's just been so fun. I wish it was going on longer, but then also I'm exhausted from a bunch of other. So I'm really enjoying the shows. Yeah, it's been great. But
What what's
yeah.
kind of some of the weirdest things that have happened on tour so far? People always like to know whether there's been people cartwheeling across the stage randomly, or someone with a lanyard didn't laugh enough.
What have I had? I mean, on this, well, I had my parents in one night, which was very kind of them. They brought some friends, but I would say, it's not a filthy show, but there are definitely two routines that it wasn't my life's highlight to perform in eye contact with my mum. So, so that was a weird moment. And then in Cambridge, there was someone who worked for Amazon who was in the audience who was very nice, but it did accidentally sound like they were threatening me at one point in a show about big tech. They weren't, but it sort of we had some fun with that. Um,
Surely you should work that into the routine. Amazon is why is that not on the strapline of the poster? The show Amazon tried to close down.
right, yeah. I'd like to think that I feel like Bezos, whoever Bezos's successor, maybe have more larger, hopefully unions to fry or whatever. They're not really that focused. I think there are people doing real powerful change. But yes, I mean that she basically just said we're listening to you, but she meant she's in the Alexa division, but it sounded like she really meant me specifically rather than the kind of everyone we.
I don't know. That's pretty creepy in and of itself.
I think
For
so.
someone who works in the Alexa division to go, "We're listening to you."
Yeah.
It's not the best phrase of words to use for an always on microphone in your home.
I think so. It was like the Succession series one thing about we here for you, if you've seen Succession. So yeah, it really felt like that.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Alex, for coming in. Is there anything else that you want to plug whilst you're here? Find out more about you at alexkealy.com, I believe. Is that correct?
Exactly. AlexKealy.com. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. If you like podcasts, I've started a new one with my friend Ivo Graham, where we take we take a different comedian each week to go watch some live music, and then we record a podcast talking to them about that gig and their relationship with live music in general. We've had guests including Rose Matafeo, Phil Wang, Ed Gamble, Lou Sanders, and they've taken us to see bands including Kendrick Lamar, Franz Ferdinand, and the Birmingham, Midlands death metal act Napalm Death. So it's been a real mix, but we're really enjoying doing that. So that podcast is called Gig Pigs. So anything for a rhyme.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Alex, for coming in and having a chat. And thank you for the gig next week. We look
Thank
forward
you.
to having you over, and the audience is getting to see Winner Takes All.
Yes, please come.
Thank you very much. And to everyone watching, thank you. All the best.